reconvene this regular study session, or regular meeting study session. It is now 7:07, and the first item up on our discussion study session for today is an update on the budget forecast enrollment projections. And we have Director Magnuson here to talk us through that. So Director Magnuson.
Good evening, Chair Cox, school board members, and so we'll talk about revenue and expenditure historical information to give a broad overview of what we're dealing with and how we got here. We'll give some preliminary thinking about the budget update that's coming for mid-year fiscal 2025 and our 2026 budgeting. So just a look at some of our historical budgeting information. We are using this graphic to break down in general where does our general fund money come from and where does it go. So if you look at this breakdown, 67%, so the bulk of our revenue comes from state aid. So what that means for school districts and for St. Louis Park Public Schools is that the legislative session is very important. And this current legislative session So that big portion of state aid, the majority of state aid comes from one funding formula.
enrolls and then withdraws mid-year.
Yeah, so that becomes an average daily membership. So in the Mars reporting world, we take students by their membership days. So once they're withdrawn, so if it's halfway through the year, we get 0.5 of that student's enrollment. And then when they go to another district, that district gets the other half
What if
of their.
it's a shorter term, like a month?
So if a student is gone more than 30 days, absent, then they drop out, and until they re-enroll, we don't pick up their count again. So if you're just gone for a couple days being sick, or your family took you out, that we don't withdraw a student until it's 15 days, it's not 30 days. So once a student is absent and we don't know where they're at for 15 days, we have to withdraw them.
Thank you.
So, okay, so the funding formula, we're currently thinking $7,465. I meet with a group of business managers from around the area, and most of the folks in other districts are going with this current estimate in their budget projections. So I believe that we'll build that projection into our thinking for now, for fiscal 2026. So when you think about a declining enrollment and maybe a 2 to sometimes 4% increase in the funding formula. So basically our funding formula has closed the gap caused by declining enrollment. So revenue hasn't increased over the last several years. This picture shows us what the funding formula at the state would have been had the formula actually kept up with inflation. So that's what current law is. We'll see if it would increase at this pace, but today, instead of being at $7,281, we'd be at $8,600 per student. That's like $5 million a year for a district like ours. That's a gap. When we know we're spending at this pace because of all kinds of pressures on costs, and our funding just doesn't process.
I think we're always. Student representatives.
Absolutely, thank you. So, I had an opportunity to in regards to what their thoughts on the makeup of the criteria for our student school board representative. So at our meeting, they had indicated that they wanted to make sure that there was representatives from 9th through 12th grade on the board, and that it should be a year service time, and students that wanted to continue on, they could reapply in order to stay on as the school board rep for that particular grade as they rise to the next grade level. So with that being said, my computer is doing some interesting things right now. So I need to wait for it to go back to sleep so I can wake back up. But if you look at the additional language from the original, thank you. The additional language from the original, our last time that we had this on at a study session is in blue. So I will draw your attention to the length of the term. And in blue, I added freshmen. So it will be a freshman, sophomore, junior, and seniors that will apply in the spring. Also in blue, under who can be a student school board rep, I struck out 3 and added 4, and also changed the number of meeting times to 22. We are looking at credit options for their service on being on the board to recognize them for their service on the board. And that is the final updates.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure. The option so that they have a choice.
You never know.
Dr. Hines, can you say more about the 22 study sessions?
Yeah, well, it's the regular board meetings and the study session, so if you count all of
right.
our regular
That's,
meetings.
that's, okay.
Mhm.
So you're giving them some awareness that
The
this
level
is-
of commitment.
The level of commitment.
Mhm.
Got it, because for a minute I thought it was like a limitation on them. And it's like, when are they ever gonna hit 22 study sessions? Now I'm tracking entirely, because I don't know.
You don't know how many
meetings
meetings you come to?
All right. Other questions? Other comments? Yeah.
Yeah, just a clarifying question on with form.
So the purpose of when the board votes, they're voting on taxpayer dollars and how they're going to be spent. So because they don't pay taxes, property taxes, MSBA recommends that students don't have the right to vote, but they can share their perspective and influence the board with information, especially when you're looking for student perspective.
Thank you. To your point about getting feedback from students, high school, middle school, is there some sort of like touch point built into the process where they can gather feedback or meet with those groups in high school and middle school?
So that's where Dr. Lafayette would work with them into how are you going to set up opportunities to hear from students and gather their voice in order to be able to analyze that data and then bring it back to the board.
Awesome. Thank you.
So it says no more than 22 sessions, or
I need to hear from the board is on it, we talked about the application process. So if you go down to the last paragraph, we need to identify the administrative designee. So the question is, should that be our board clerk? Should it be another officer? Should we facilitate and filter that through Jasmine, the executive assistant, when it comes to engaging the students through the application process?
okay, so
vice chair will be the administrative designee.
Yeah.
And then we will begin the process of going live so we can start advertising and getting the students excited.
And when do we think might be their first meeting? Do we have any?
So the first meeting will be in August.
Okay.
So we will start our interviewing and application process. So I think the deadline, it says April 4th, I want to say, is the deadline for them to apply. So we want to make sure that we're really advertising and educating about the role
Yeah.
and the exciting opportunity to serve. So we want to make sure we're marketing and getting the word out. It's happening. I'm so excited.
Some policy development items, and I think we might lean on you, Dr. Hines, for all of
Sure.
these here. So however you want to take them up, but we have visitor policy, student attendance, and we have internet technology responsible use are the items here, so.
Yes, so the first policy that we will to take our current practices and our procedure, our current practices, and codify that in a policy. So what you'll see is all in red text, meaning because it's all new language for us, because we currently do not have a policy on file. But Director Suku was leading the writing of this policy with her involvement with the Welcome Center. So if you have anything else to add in regards to the policy?
I don't have much more to add, other than one of the things that we currently do have is language in our student handbooks. So this policy reflects that information as well. So we did use the MSBA model policy to do much of the policy design, but then we added in existing procedures that we have into this. So that language is also here as well. If there's any missing language, I'd like to make sure that we get that reflected before the second reading.
And the intent would be to bring
Vote, February 28th, I think is our regular business meeting.
January 20th.
Oh, yes, January 28th.
Okay.
I'm a whole month ahead.
Other comments, questions? Yeah.
Just
There's nothing that we currently are not practicing, though I think there may be some information that we would want to, in alignment with some of our I Love You Guys information as well, particularly around parking procedures that may not be codified currently in practice. So I would say it's somewhat new, but it's still, I think if we had a visitor who we turned away from our site, the policy currently doesn't say anything about whether or not you could stay parked on premise. This policy does add that in. I don't know that we've had any situations of that in recent history that we could even notify in this, but it does provide language around that.
Bringing this one forward in response to some of the conversations that were had at the board table in regards to school calendar and for the student being excused absence for observing religious holy days. So we wanted to codify that in our policy. So that you will see that is the red language that has been added. Under two
Right, it's a,
excused absence under, what is this, B1, lowercase b
right,
12.
under,
Looks like.
it looks like it's under the procedures,
Yeah.
just because there's page 1 with the very, very
Yes.
short, what is that, the statement of policy.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed there's in red accumulated
Yes.
below. Is there?
Count the absences when we get to the point of notification, because there are certain stop gaps that they have in place where we need to communicate with home that you have 3 unexcused absence or 3 unexcused cumulative absences. There was a lot of questions, is it cumulative, or is it consecutive, right? So it would be, you would have 2 absences, and then the student would show up to school and then there was an assumption that that number would reset. So we wanted to make sure that it was cumulative as opposed to consecutive.
And is that throughout the entire year, or is that like quarterly, or?
It is for the year.
Okay.
Mhm.
I just wanted to point this out, just
If they can't get to the doctor, how can we help? If they're having some housing instabilities, how can we push in and support? So we don't want too much time to go in between before we hear from families as to why a child is absent. So we're just trying to make sure that we do the wraparound services to support where we can. And just so we can show that we care, right? It's like, yeah, your child was missing. We want to make sure that we are in partnership and we have this open line of communication. Some of the things that both you and Taylor pointed out that I was like, about it. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a recommendation. And it was centered around, if you don't call in within 24 hours, it will remain unexcused. And then the second sentence where there will be no exceptions to this rule.
Well, if we're gonna just have a little confession.
say if the student arrives 10 to 15 minutes after the bell,
In the morning, first hour?
it could be first hour, it could be second hour,
Okay.
it could be any hour. If they are not with another adult that is writing them a pass to account for that they were conversing with a counselor, or they were meeting with the social worker, or they were meeting with an administrator, or they were meeting with another teacher they were following up to get some clarification. They're not accounted for as far as why they were late. That's that unexcused tardy.
And that's district-wide, not like.
I send this to the policy committee now, and if there's any additional strike-throughs or language, that it's in blue. So, because that's how we track the readings and the edits by the color. So first reading is red, second reading is blue. So we will forward this on to the policy committee, and then you all can shoot it back to us, and then we will get it ready for a second reading.
I guess
So
I
we
was
have-
just. Good to have a strong policy. I'm just wondering if, I don't even know how to ask that question. How do you find out if teachers are, if this happens? Like for my school, if they have 3 accumulated, not consecutive, but accumulated tardies, that's, we have like a strike system, so it's a call home, and then after that is a detention, and we don't really get into the unexcused absence until a particular time. So if you're 15 minutes late to first hour, that is for sure an unexcused absence. If they're over 5 minutes late to any other class, that's an unexcused absence. And as an educator, we came together and we decided that we were going to crack down. We were going to follow up on that, and we had to, but like that wiggle room between 2 seconds late and 5 minutes late, that starts to get weird. I just want to make sure that teachers feel supported in whatever decision that they make, and that, they don't say, well, Mr. Anderson doesn't care that I walk in 10 minutes late, and then Ms. Mancini is the one that's being the, mean-seeny and doing all the. Maybe this is not the appropriate place to bring this up, but those are kind of my thoughts right now.
What board?
Because I think that they have some new language out there when it comes to what is considered an absence. Because I think that there was some concerns that that came up in some districts where parents would drop their kids off, but the kids never went to class. So they were absent, present on campus. And I think there may be some case law that said, well, technically, the kids were at school. It is a school issue to get them to class. Yep.
And Can I,
I'll let
can
you
I offer,
marinate on
can I
that.
offer something on this too? I believe, if I'm not correct, but I was looking at BS. Walton is involved with that. She's a returning school board member in Osseo School District, and super friendly person, former colleague of mine in Hennepin County Communications. So I would also maybe, if you felt comfortable, reach out to her as a fellow school board member, that she may have some perspective on that, and that might be, if she doesn't, then she might have some other connections to make there, but yeah, so that might be another good option for people in the board.
New to the policy committee, right?
Yeah.
And-
Wait.
So who are you guys?
Gretchen.
When it's their parents who are responsible, right? And both of you shared examples where, in a, you know, a totally legitimate reason, I mean, forgetting is a legitimate, but the parent, that's on the parent, right? That's not on the student. And then, like, there's no exceptions to an unexcused absence. I mean, under that rule, you call Ms. Paddock tomorrow and it doesn't matter, right? Like, you can't excuse that absence now, it's too late. So I would support.
We're in the policy.
I would support that.
Policy review.
I would support that language being reviewed, because I mean, and
Yeah,
this also,
I
I
agree.
think, pertains to the original reason why we brought this up about the holidays, right? That, like, I'm not, the words like parents' rights are very loaded right now in this world,
Yes.
but, right, like, there are some things that I believe that parents have the right to do, and like excusing your own child's absence is one of them. And I don't, for a religious holiday or for sickness or whatever.
Well,
So
I
don't think
understand
we
like
should-
the intent.
Yeah.
I mean, the importance of it. I'm not, the intent is solid, because frankly, you know, I would not necessarily know. My daughter could just excuse herself. Like, I wouldn't know. Like, there are ways within the system that she could probably work it. But I also think there needs to, I don't like this word either, but I'm going to use it anyways, just having some grace for parents who are trying to parent. It's hard sometimes. So.
So, Dr. Hines, is there any reason it needs to be read at the next?
It might be.
It might be. Sarah then might also have a connection there, but you just look for it. It confused me though. So when I saw it at AMSD, I was like, Kelsey, I want to talk to you about something, but it wasn't the time to talk about it. But I was trying to get my head wrapped around it. But I think she would be great to talk to about this stuff. So again, she, as a parent, she has several kids, a school board member, and somebody who's working on this stuff for the county. I think she would be a great resource. Okay. So that may or may not come back next time, but thank you. So let's move on to 524 unless there was something else there. And that's about internet and technology.
All right.
This we've seen a lot. Don't we see this a lot? We see this regularly or something? I feel like we've seen it somewhat regularly. All right, we're
Well,
going.
all right, policy 524 is really addressing the cell phone policy that,
Oh, God.
that was tongue-tied. Legislative mandate from last year? Last legislative session, where districts, school boards had to have language in policy about cell phones. So what we did was really took the recommendation from MSBA in their model policy in regards to how we are going to address our cell phone policies. So you'll see the policy in language, our practice are in our student handbooks. Okay, so if you scroll down to page, okay, it's not on page, it is Roman numeral, was that 15? You will see cell phones and other electronic device use. The reason why we added the other electronic device, because, you know, technology is ever evolving. Google and Meta glasses are also considered in this, and smartwatches are also considered.
With time machines being included too.
Well, you know, electronic devices, you know, it's coming with those, they would be included as well.
Oh, okay, we've had a ruling that it's probably not likely. That might be the exclusion. If somebody invents a time machine, they could come back to this school, to this policy. That'd be good. All right, great. So a lot of language in here, but you said this is sort of similar to what you were saying before with the other policy, that like you sort of reversed out of it. This is all currently in place, and then we're just applying it at a higher level, a district-wide level.
Yes. So, and the thing is that Director Williams asked the question in regards to searching students' phones. So anytime we have a behavior incident where text messages may be involved or social media may be involved, most of the time that happens outside of the school day. Anytime that it happens and it impacts the school day, we have a responsibility to address the behavior. So we will, one, make sure that we're calling home to inform parents that there is an incident that involved their child's cell phone or whatever electronic device that the infraction may be coming through, that we need the information from. And we ask the students to bring that particular thing up. We don't go through and start, we'll ask the teacher, show us where the text threads are or the message or what have you. But parents are always informed that these things are coming through their children's devices.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I've dealt with as a teacher. So if a student, even at a school-sponsored event, takes a photo of another student, that would consider a violation of any number of different other policies. And so in that situation, what do you do? And does the policy, so if you know so if they took a picture of a student that was potentially considered pornography because they took a photo of the person showering without their knowledge, and then shared it with friends or shared it on social media or through Snap, what protects the district? What do you do in that kind of situation? And what does policy say in regards to that?
Yeah, so separate investigation. We will do school infraction behavior response, but then there's a whole separate investigation with law enforcement, because if an inappropriate photo was taken that's considered pornography and then they're sharing it, it's way beyond our scope of responsibility.
What about fights? So if a video,
Policy says. So it's in Roman numeral 5, Part B. Students are prohibited from using a cell phone or other electronic communication device to engage in conduct prohibited by school district policies, including, but not limited to, cheating, bullying, harassment, and malicious and sadistic conduct.
so it would be considered like malicious?
Yes.
And potential harassment? And I guess my third question asking and what the district can provide. Did you have a chance to look at this policy, and did you
I did.
sign off on it?
Well, this, I mean, it's basically MSBA boilerplate stuff here, so most of our districts around us are gonna adopt this language. It boils down to what they were referring to in section B. If it's something that is criminal in nature and we have to get the police involved, then it really becomes a police matter. And whatever, then the police, if they need to collect data or whatever, then it's really on them and not on us.
To go through the channels. But B doesn't actually bring up, I just realized that my third question I need to ask wasn't connected to what Director Williams was saying about so if they're taking a picture or their video, a fight that happens in the commons or whatever, but we can't take their phone and, search for that picture. Like they have to, that's not so teachers will be informed about that, and administrators. I can't imagine a teacher, I think it's more of an administrator type of issue. So administrators can't search a phone. What if you're looking to figure out an incident to see?
Like you're investigating a bullying incident.
Right.
So if we have, generally, what tends to happen, it's the victim that is in receipt, or a friend who has seen it and has captured it. They are turning it in on the victim's behalf. And it's a matter of, okay, we have the evidence. We don't necessarily have to go through your phone, because here we are.
Yeah.
We know you are Mean Zini 3.2.
I'm going to regret ever bringing that up. Haven't necessarily been clear cut where it was so-and-so sent a text message or sent a snap to another student, and so it's like super clear cut who sent it, because we have, I don't even know what a fake Snapchat sounds like. I know that we used to have Finsta, and so I was aware of that, and so now I don't even know what the kids are calling it, and I'm sure if my daughter were watching, she would be really disgusted with me right now. But I think that they are finding ways to harass each other and to send terrible things from each other, where it's very difficult to track what device that came from and who is coming from it. And it does end up being one of those things where you can go to a phone company, or you can go to the internet, or whatever Snapchat's parent group is. I have no idea.
And I think that that's the education of parents, right? There's in technology to find out who exactly this text is coming from via that. Okay, Tom, you know the language to trace where the UP address.
IP address.
IP, yeah.
I'm very careful when we come to these situations. Underage students. Myself or anyone else in this organization who are asked to look at those images should not do so unless there is a police officer present.
Yeah. And I think too, there, because that's also, you're putting teachers in vulnerable positions as well, because if there's not a clear cell phone policy and students are taking pictures of teachers without their permission and then posting it in unflattering or like lies, posting, you know, there's
Yep,
all.
they're changing images, they're putting faces.
Do we have, and I admit that when I read this on Saturday, I didn't fully think about it in my brain that I am now. As a part of the student handbook, is it pretty clear about students when they're allowed to take photos, when they're not allowed to take photos and things like that? Because like, it's weird, like the law reads that you only have to have one person in the room give you permission to record something, and I just, so maybe it is just an education campaign that we're educating our teachers and our students for ethical use of their cell phones, but this is an area that's, I think, is gonna be bigger than this policy.
Yeah, and this is just a policy, right? Because we have policies and we have procedures. Handbooks that talks about the procedures.
Yeah, I just
So-
want to make sure our policies are supporting our procedures and our procedures
They
are
are.
supporting our
They are.
policy. So, because that's important.
So this is our first reading,
So
and this
this-
is going to the policy committee, and we are having a listening session on this policy. And then we will see it again?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, like in March?
So we have to have this in place in March, by March.
15th, yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's a long process.
All right, any other questions?
The parent refuses to allow their student to, show their phone for, privacy reasons or whatever, what would be the procedure then?
So, we're asking and just in cooperation, they can refuse, but we can always ask. So did you receive it? Ashley, can you show me to me? And we get it, we eventually get it. So it's like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna sound like a police officer because I live with one. But either you can cooperate so that we can get through this investigation quicker, or we will eventually get it. And then there's the whole additional consequences that can get added up too, because now we're not just dealing with the incident itself. Now you're being insubordinate. You are, so it can just accumulate when it doesn't have to.
I had a quick question, maybe.
Where it originated from, right? Might have time, date stamp, or geolocation or something like that on it, but.
I have a follow-up question, but I'll wait till after, because I don't want.
I think you're snapping it to one person, it will not go away, and they will find it, right? Someone can find it if it is illegal or whatever. Like, nothing on the internet is for one person's eyes only, it just isn't.
Exactly.
So I think that's like the key part of the education campaign.
You have to be
Yeah.
conscious of your digital footprint.
Do we do any sort of proactive education like that?
Social media, and I know when we had the partnership with Park Nicollet, even the doctors mentioned that when you send something, even if someone doesn't take a screenshot, someone could use another device, take a picture, and just to be really mindful and think about your digital footprint in the world.
Is that across all of our fifth grades? Again, feedback, but we do have that deadline, and so time is of the essence on this one, for sure. Any other comments, any other things here? We've made it through our entire agenda. I think, and again, I don't think I have to motion to adjourn. I can just call it, I could just adjourn us, so I'm just gonna do that if there's nothing else. Adjourn us at